Hi everybody. Just wanted to create a short video to talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing for assignment number 5. So basically in assignment number 5, what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you watch a movie of your choice, and it has to be a movie that deals with memory impairment of some form. And on the paper description of the assignment, I provide a little bit more detail about that, but can include things like memory loss that shows up in movies like 50 First Dates, and other amnesia types of memory loss. This can include things like Alzheimer's disease, so I'm blanking on the name of the movie. There's a movie that came out recently. I think it has something to do about the name Susan, where there's a college professor who struggles with Alzheimer's. There are other movies that deal specifically with Alzheimer's disease. But basically, the key idea is that I want you to select some movie that deals with memory impairment in some way. And what I want you to do is I want you to watch that movie and then think about some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about when we talk about the memory section. So I guess I should preface this by saying, before you start on assignment number 5, definitely start planning now. But before you start on assignment 5, wait until I have the memory slides and videos posted, so that we can talk a little bit about memory, so you have some idea of what memory is, but then also what memory impairment may look like, because we'll be talking about that as we kind of go through the remainder of the semester. Now, for this paper, what I want you to do is I want you to basically write a short paper about that movie, and I'll talk about specifically what I want you to include in the paper in a minute. But because everybody always asks me about page lengths, definitely the minimum for this paper is going to be 2 pages. And I have seen people do a really good job on this paper in 2 pages, but realize that's the absolute bare minimum, right? And so please keep the paper somewhere between 2 to 4 pages. I would say, based on what I've seen in previous semesters, most people take about 3.5 pages in order to be able to really kind of do justice to what it is that I want you to do with the assignment. But in this paper, really what I want you to cover are 3 main ideas. So broadly, I want you to just provide me a brief description of that movie. And please remember, I haven't seen a lot of movies. I'm horrible at watching movies. And because of that, usually I need some sort of a description of what this movie is about. So explain a little bit about the plot of the movie, and also kind of in what way do they show memory impairment. Then I want you to just write a little bit about, does the movie accurately portray memory loss? So based on what it is that we've talked about in class, and your research is going to be talking about here in a little bit, is how accurately does the movie portray some sort that whatever the memory loss it is that it's portraying. And then finally, because most movies have to kind of take scientific accuracy out to varying degrees, but usually there are some things that they do get right and some things that they don't get right. And so what I want you to do is to think critically about, well, what did this movie get really, really right? And what are some things that they got wrong that may have helped kind of move the plot of the movie along? So for example, in the Nemo movies, at least the first one, Finding Nemo, they do a pretty good job of memory accurate, pretty good, pretty good representation of how they show memory impairment in the case of, I think it's Nemo, is the fish that loses the memory. But in it, they do a pretty good job, but there's still a few things that they kind of get wrong. So that's kind of the overview of what I want in the papers. I want you to really hit those 3 things. Describe the movie a little bit to me. Does it accurately represent memory loss? And maybe what are some of the things that they do get right and they don't get right in it? Now, in the paper form of the assignment that I've given you, I've included some resources that give some suggested movies, and also some resources for kind of doing research for this topic. And so in there's a lot of different movies that you can choose. In fact, there's a Wikipedia page specifically for movies that deal with memory impairment. I can't attest to all of the movies on there. I've only seen a small handful of them, but it's a good resource if you want to try to get some ideas for something new that you haven't seen, or something that may be interesting, new, and unique that people have done in the class. So please definitely feel free to check out that. Also, one of the parts of the assignment that I want you to do is I want you to back up your arguments with at least one trustworthy documented source. Now, you can't always find a journal research paper about movies out there, and I understand that, and that's not realistic. But online, there are a fair amount of reliable sources, either written by psychologists, memory experts, or whatnot, where they've actually written about how well a movie does or does not portray memory impairments in people. And so as part of this assignment, what I want you to do is to find one of those resources and use that resource to back up your argument. Now, just glancing around and in the resources I provided you, in fact, I think there's one specific website where they've done this for a bunch of different movies, but what I want you to do is to basically just kind of ground your argument in some sort of reliable source of whether, that you think that this is really an accurate portrayal or an inaccurate portrayal of memory loss. And in the process of that, I also want you to use just standard APA to document that. So using appropriate in-text citation sources, and then also at the end of the paper having a reference section where you provide the specific reference information about the reference it is that you used. Now, if you haven't had too much experience with APA citation style, one of the best things to do is to go to a website, Al Purdue, and I actually have that written on the written assignment, but they provide a nice overview for how to document things using APA citation style. So I would definitely recommend checking that out, not only for this class, but then for other classes you have where you need to provide APA or American Psychological Association citation style, which is very different from what you learn in English classes and whatnot, where they use MLA or Chicago style. So APA is a very specific citation style. Now, the other thing that I will say about this is to please, especially given the times and everything that's going on, help my sanity. So when students do this, especially one semester, I didn't limit what movies people could do. And I would say that probably 3/4 of the paper were either about the Vow, one of the Finding Nemo movies, or 50 First Dates. And it is just frustrating to keep reading about those movies over and over and over again. In fact, in class, I talked a little bit about the fact that even though I've never seen The Vow, I was picking up on people getting the plot description of the movie wrong, just based on the fact that I had read it so many times. And so please, in the case of those three movies, I've read about them a ton, and it gets kind of boring and frustrating to read about them over and over again. So please, use some creativity in thinking about movies. In the past, people have done, there's a movie by Jim Carrey, I believe it's 23. That one's really interesting. Memento's another really great movie. There are a whole other series of movies. One of the things that people have done in the past too is that they've done specific episodes of the Black Mirror. And so I forget the episode title, but there's one where basically it views memory as kind of like this giant video system. And so that would be a really good one to use, where even though I guess it's not really memory impairment, it's an interesting kind of entertaining look at memory or what memory may become. And so that's fair game. All that to say is please explore different movie options or TV options or anything like that. If you have any questions about whether I think something's appropriate or not, please feel free to email me, and I'm happy to get back to you and tell you whether I think that that's an appropriate form of media to use for this. And then finally, one of the things that I will say, on the assignment sheet, there's a rubric for the paper. And so it gives specific point values and breakdowns of how I'll be grading the paper and where I'll be focusing as far as different point values I'll be assigning to things and how the points lay out for the project. So hopefully that provides you with enough background about assignment number 5. If you have any questions or anything like that, definitely feel free to email me and ask me. And good luck working on assignment number 5. Hopefully it should be fun.